Hi friends, welcome to Radiant Resilience. I thought I would do this first episode as a personal episode and a solo episode to introduce myself to you and this community so that everybody knows who I am and what my purpose is here and a little bit about me and my own story. My name is Tawny Palm. I am your host of Radiant Resilience. I've been wanting to start this podcast for a really long time, but I don't know, fear and imposter syndrome and a few other things have kind of stopped me from, or just prevented me from doing the podcast. And I decided recently that screw it, I'm just going to do it. So I have some really great interviews lined up for you in the upcoming future that I hope that you will enjoy. The purpose of this podcast is I have struggled with a few things in my life that I will get into here shortly. And there's been many, many times where I felt very alone and very isolated and like nobody understood. And I know deep down that that's not totally true. I know there's a lot of people that have struggled with the same things that I've struggled with and with many other things. But I think with social media, the way it is today and the way our world is, it feels a little bit like everybody's living this perfect life and you're the only one in the world that's struggling. And I totally understand that. My hope with this podcast is that by listening to these other stories of regular human beings that are struggling on a daily basis as everyone else is, that you will find comfort and community so you feel less alone in your own struggles. And know that you are not the only one going through what you're going through. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into an overview of my story. I was going to go into a much more detailed version of my story in this episode, but I think I may save that for a later episode to do with you guys. I am 36 years old and I grew up in Castle Rock, Colorado. I have two younger sisters. One is 4 years younger than me and one is 12 years younger than me. I met my now husband in high school. I was a junior and he was a senior. And I was a cheerleader and he was a basketball player. So the classic cheesy movie story that you see, which is slightly embarrassing, but it's my truth and I love him to death. I went to beauty school during my senior year of high school, and he went off to Fort Collins to go to CSU for college. And one of the first hurdles that I experienced in my life was when my parents got divorced. I was 19 years old, and it was quite the struggle at the time. I was a teenager at the end of my teen years and trying to figure out adulting and all of that. And then for me and my sisters, our whole world kind of imploded. We had this happy family for 19 years of my life. And then all of a sudden it was breaking apart and it was pretty traumatic. That was the first time that I really experienced feeling alone and not really knowing how to handle those feelings, especially because I was a teenager. A lot of the people that I knew at the time had been through divorce. I knew people that had gone through divorce in their own lives, but it happened when they were a lot younger. And so it was really hard. And you know, as a teenager, you don't really open up as much as you might later on in life about that stuff. I feel like, you know, the brooding, keep it to yourself teenager, that was very much me at the time. So anyways, that was the first real life struggle that I really went through, and it was tough, but we got through it. And my husband graduated from college and we decided to make traveling a huge part of our lives. We now do a ton of international travel. We've been to 40 plus countries, and we can do maybe a deep dive episode on that at some point if everyone's interested. But we go for multiple months at a time and we do it backpacker style and we love it and still do it to this day. We got married when I was, it was 2013. So I was about 25. Yeah, 25 years old. And we've been now together for almost 20 years and married for 10. We have had a wonderful marriage. He is a wonderful human being, and I have so many good things I could say about him. But one of the first, so the divorce was the first thing that I went through that was a struggle and a little bit traumatizing in my life. And then my next biggest hurdle would be the biggest one I think that I have ever had to overcome to this point in my life. My husband and I, like most married couples, decided that we wanted to start a family. And unfortunately, we ran into a million different roadblocks. We are still in the midst of experiencing infertility. We started trying when I was about 28, 29 years old, and I'm now 36. I have done multiple rounds of IVF. I have done 5 egg retrievals and 8 embryo transfers that all failed. I have seen 1 positive pregnancy test in my life, and it lasted for about a day. I did a couple rounds of IVF in Turkey, and all of this, like I said, I can go into in more detail, but I think that'll be saved for a later episode. Have never in my life experienced such grief and heartbreak. I have felt extremely unworthy. I have hated myself and my body, and I don't think I've ever felt so alone. And I'm still in the midst of going through this. We have decided currently to walk away from treatment. I don't really know that we've decided anything else besides that. Sure, adoption could be a possibility. There are other options, but we have decided to walk away from infertility treatment, meaning IVF or anything similar. My body has been through enough. Our relationship has been through enough. My bank account has been through enough. And my heart has been through enough. It's heartbreaking. And I don't know anyone in my immediate circle who even really struggled to get pregnant. A lot of my friends from earlier years got pregnant relatively easy. I have made some friends through the process that were also going through IVF, but they have since had success and multiple successes. And a couple of them have stayed incredibly close friends that I absolutely adore and have been a huge support to me. And I don't want to diminish that at all. However, I do think there's something to be said about the fact that I still have not crossed that threshold into motherhood. And so it's still hard for me to relate with them on mothering things. And it's hard for them to relate to me with my journey of not succeeding. So this has been my main motivation for wanting to start this podcast is my infertility struggles. I have had so many times where I felt so lonely, and I know I'm not alone because I know 1 in 6 couples struggles with infertility. But also how many of those end up walking away from fertility treatment or walking away from adoption or other options and saying enough is enough and I'm going to move on with my life. My infertility struggles have been the main focus of the last 8 years of my life, and I can't do it anymore. I need to find who I am and what my purpose is on this earth outside of that. And obviously, I'm still hoping for a miracle. I'm still hoping that I'm going to be that one person that eventually they stopped thinking about it and they got pregnant. But I can't bank on that anymore. And I think in making that decision, it brought me some peace and also is starting to build up my resiliency. Struggles and traumas and all the things that we go through in life, roadblocks, whatever you want to call them, define us and make us who we are today and mold us into better people. I think in the end, once you get past it, once you get through it, once you've started to heal from it, we are better people for it. We have more empathy, we have more compassion. And as much as I wish that no one in this world had to struggle through anything, all I want is for the world and everyone out there to live their best, happiest lives. That's all I've ever wanted. I've told my sisters that a million times. I'm like, all I want is for you to live your best life. So I wish that that was the reality, but the reality is that we all struggle with something. And that is my huge hope for doing this podcast, is that you will listen and you will find someone who shares a similar story, and that you will know that you are not alone and that other people are also struggling. And if you're not comfortable enough speaking it, that's okay. Listen to the stories, and maybe that will bring you comfort and help you heal and help you become more resilient. That is my hope. Like I said, I will go into more detail about some of this stuff later down the road, but I plan on interviewing lots of people from lots of different walks of life, and I hope that it helps. And I hope you enjoyed this podcast, this first episode, and the upcoming interviews that I have for you. Please enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.